Administration, or if you may, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. As I've noted, if you look at our elections over the last electoral cycle, there have been incremental progress. But again, there have been certain persistent challenges that have featured since 2022. One, of course, that was dealt with by the Supreme Court was on the corporate governance, the question of disunity and division within the Commission, the question of elite interference in the electoral process by both sides of the political divide, if you may, but also the constitutional and legislative design on the structure of the Commission. Honorable Chairs, as I've noted, we've had to demonstrate how problematic this problem has been, is to appreciate the fact that we've had 7 multi-party elections since '92. And over that period of time, the structure, the outlook, and the composition of the Electoral Commission has also changed 7 times. The Chesoni Commission, the Kivuitu Commission, the IPPG Commission of 2002, the Interim Independent Electoral Commission, IIC, that managed the 2010 referendum, Amirizaka Iebc, Chebukati Iebc, and the Chebukati Cherera Iebc of 2022. As the country prepares for the 8th multi-party elections, we are talking about the need to reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and that would be effectively the 8th commission to manage the 8th multi-party elections since 2002. If you look at the international best practices of designing an electoral commission, and part of what I want to persuade this committee to consider is that there are 3 criteria that are required to design a commission. Number 1 is the legitimacy and acceptance, the perceived degree of legitimacy or acceptance of the commission, perceived degree of independence and autonomy, perceived degree of service, and finally, the perceived degree of service delivery. These are the 3 tests that are usually invoked to assess a credible electoral commission. In this continent, it's probably the Ghana Electoral Commission and the South African Electoral Commission that meets these 3 tests. Whereas there have been progress in the Electoral Commission, and I'm mindful of the work that IEBC did in 2022, these 3 tests have not fully been realized. And I think this dialogue committee may make recommendations on improving the Electoral Commission to meet this test. Honorable Chair, since '92, or since independence, the country has experimented with various designs of the electoral management bodies. We have tinkered with the law, we have adjusted regulations and changed personnel, and yet the outcome seems to me to be more of the same. So what then are some of the key recommendations in reconstituting IEBC? The first, Honorable Chairs, is that the 3 electoral cycle, 2013, 2017, and 2022, has given this country enough adequate experimentation or experiment with the independent model of the Commission. And it seems to me, and given the fact that I work in elections or strengthening the electoral in the continent, I come from the school of thought that I am deeply convinced that this country needs an independent, expert electoral commission. But in 2014, I did a master's degree in law and a research dissertation on reforming election management and administration. In as much as I believed very strongly on an expert model electoral commission, what I received in terms of and contained in this thesis, in terms of the recommendation across the board, shocked me. That increasingly the country preferred an IPPG-based model. I disagreed with it, but I came up and had that as my conclusion because I had to pay attention to the comments and the feedback and the opinion of the respondents that I interviewed. Now, I then questioned the efficacy looking at the work of similar commissions in Africa. In 2015, Mozambique adopted the IPPG model arising from Kenya. Now, what Frelimo did was essentially to buy all the commissioners that were nominated by Renamo. Again, in DRC, that is exactly what happened. But if you look at Kenya and election management as a context, if you look at the last 3 electoral cycles, I've come to the conclusion that in as much as I have supported very strongly the expert independent model, I think the situation and the Kenyan context, and also mindful of the 2002 elections, which is probably one of the best elections this country has ever had, I think this committee should consider a mixed model of IPPG and expert commission. The second thing is